Hello and welcome to the City of Palm Coast Virtual Town Hall. I'm Lieutenant Patrick Juliano, Public Information Officer for the Palm Coast Fire Department. Joining me today is Captain Tommy Ascone, our Emergency Manager. Today we're discussing storm preparedness. The Atlantic hurricane season started June 1st and lasts until November 30th. The timing of this month's Virtual Town Hall couldn't have happened at a better time. This week, we're watching the National Hurricane Center give us updates on Tropical Storm Elsa. So today, it's a perfect opportunity to talk about preparedness for tropical storms and hurricanes. So, Captain Ascone, we're talking about storm preparedness. What are some ways that we can get our home ready?
We are monitoring Storm Elsa in the tropics right now, so it is time to get our house ready and prepared. So a few things that we need to do pre-storm is make sure we have our trees hurricane cut, trimmed back. We have debris removed from the home, so that way limbs are not going to destroy your windows. We need to, if you live in the water areas and you own a boat, you need to secure your boat. We don't want to ride the storm out on a vessel. We want to make sure we're on dry land when a storm does come through. There are many different ways to store your boat in dry storage, or if we're going to go ahead and store it to our docks, we don't want to tie it down really tight because we do have a lot of storm surge. Our intercoastals do flood, and your boat will sink to your dock. So a great way of securing your boat is tying one rope from one side of the bank to the other side of the bank, putting the boat in the center of the canal. So there's a lot of things that we need to do to have our boats ready if we live on the waters.
So one of the other ways that we can kind of get our houses ready is if we have a pool or any outside lawn furniture. So we want to bring that stuff inside. We want to make sure we can drain down our pool a little bit. That way, if we get heavy or significant rainfall, it doesn't create a flooding issue. But getting all that lawn equipment, the grill, and any of those lawn ornaments that you have around your yards, that way they don't become projectiles when we get significant winds and they start moving things around. And ultimately, we want you to protect your house and protect your neighbor's house by not having stuff being moved around everywhere.
So you do need to have a plan. You need to know if you're going to stay or if you're going to go, right? So that's the one decision you have to make. If you're going to stay, you need to let family know that you're staying and make sure they have a way of getting a hold of you. If you're going to leave, you need to have 2 or 3 different places that you're going to go to, depending on which way the storm goes. So if you're going to stay in the state of Florida, maybe you're going to go to the West Coast. If you're going to leave the state of Florida, maybe you're going to go to Georgia. Maybe you're going to go into the Panhandle area. Wherever you go, wherever your plan is, make sure people know where you're going and they have your emergency contact information when you go. While you're making that plan of where you're going, you need to have an emergency response kit. Make sure that you have enough water for 1 gallon of water per person per day. Make sure you have food. Make sure you have clothing. Make sure you have medication. Medication is one of the most important things that you need to make sure you have with you. It's a 5-day supply for everybody that takes that would need it. You would need to bring toiletries, batteries, weather alert radios, flashlights. If you're bringing your pets, make sure you have food for your pets. If your pets take medication, make sure you have medication for your pets. Make sure you have crates, because some hotels and places will require you to crate your animal while you're staying there. So create your list, create your kit, and have it ready to go before you decide to evacuate.
Now, we were talking about evacuation zones. We have a unique system here in Palm Coast to where the county and the state has given us to where our zones are. So you may hear evacuation zone A or evacuation zone B. Now, we're unique where some of our streets start with the same letter, so we have the B section. So is the B section the same as evacuation zone B?
No, that's a great question. It is not. So outside your area, your C section or B section, F section, on the stop sign, there's an evacuation sign that tells you what zone you're in. Zone A is your barrier island. So anything east of the intercoastal will be evacuation zone A. Evacuation zone B will be Florida Park to the intercoastal. Evacuation C is the woodlands. Evacuation zone D would be anything 95 west to Florida Park Drive. So looking at your stop signs as you leave your neighborhoods, see what evacuation zone you're in will help you from getting confused. And when we say we're going to evacuate zone C, people that live in the C section, it's not them, they're in evacuation zone B. Usually we'll shut the barrier islands down. So if you do not have a valid ID that says you live on the Bear Island, they do not allow you to go over there. So you cannot go beachside to watch the storm come through, right? But if you do reside there, they will let you pass back and forth. At 40 miles an hour, we shut down the bridges because it's unsafe to travel on a bridge with sustained winds. The fire department emergency service personnel also stop responding to calls after 40 miles an hour because it is unsafe for us to act and respond in that type of wind.
And I know a lot of people are going to ask, when is the good time to evacuate? And and part of that is knowing that evacuation zones are given out by the county. They're strategically timed to give the folks in that zone enough time to get out before they strategically start going west and letting folks know it's time to evacuate. But anybody who lives at west of 95, there's no evacuation zones west of 95 in the city of Palm Coast. So we talked about knowing some of the shelter locations. If you're going to go to a shelter, where are some of our traditional locations?
So we utilize the schools for our shelters. We open our shelters when we start the evacuation process. So we work with Jonathan Lord, the county's emergency manager, and he's the one that gives us the evacuation orders. And he is watching the storm, and he is watching how quickly the storm is going to approach us, as well as our evacuation time. So it is a systematic approach that he takes to do a countywide evacuation, and he does it based on population and time. So if the storm is 36 hours away and we have a population of 20,000 people we need to leave, he's going to start evacuating people accordingly. So when we do give the evacuation orders, it is important to follow them, and it's something that we definitely don't take lightly. If you decide to stay and then you decide to go to a shelter, there are a lot of things that you need to bring with you at a shelter. It's a small space. They have cots possibly for you. So you're going to need to bring food and water. Again, the same supplies that you would need for your emergency kit, 1 gallon of water per person per day, food, toiletry items, clothing, blankets, pillows, medication for 5 days, because now you're going to be at one of our shelters. And our shelters are our schools. So we have an emergency needs shelter that is at rimfire. We have pet-friendly shelters that the county works with Humane Society, and they will set up pet-friendly shelters there. You can bring your service animals with you to a shelter, but if you do not have a service animal, they're going to have to go to a pet-friendly shelter. Shelters are opened up based on need, and that information will be released during the storm through our social media, through the county social media. So as the storm approaches and we start opening up shelters, please follow our media pages.
So one of the things is being prepared before the storm gets here, because once the storm is now here, we're locked down. So after 40 miles an hour, once we have those sustained winds, they don't want anybody on the roadways, and that includes us as emergency responders. So it's really important that folks have a plan and stick to their plan and be ready for when the storm makes landfall here. Once the storm is now here, you're sheltered in place, or you're at a shelter, and we as city employees are here sheltered in place. Let's talk about, what are our city employees doing during this time?
Sure. We do a lot of things in the city. A lot of people don't realize when we open up our EOC in the city, all city staff have multiple jobs. We don't do permitting during a storm. So our permitting department may convert over to our food unit, and they're feeding the city staff that is working. So every city staff has 2 or 3 different jobs that we're going to perform during a storm to get our city back operational. So as the storm moves through, we have a lot of wind, which creates a lot of trees down, a lot of power lines down. So once the wind subsides, the fire department, along with Public Works, makes a first push out. We try to drive every street in Palm Coast within the first 12 hours of reopening the city. And we identify all of the hazards. If it's a tree down, we remove the tree. If it's a tree in a power line, we give that information back to customer service so they can contact FPL. So FPL can go over there and safely remove that hazard.
And I think it's important to know that your city employees are wearing multiple hats during this. Like we mentioned, some of the administrative staff will be running the food unit, feeding the 500 plus workers that are out in the field, or monitoring the critical infrastructure like our water system and our drainage system. There are staff that actually get detailed to the Emergency Operations Center, not just your fire department, but other staff, to be in communication with our partners like FPNL, the Sheriff's Department, and other county agencies that help restore services back. So we're all busy monitoring the storm. Even the communications division, they're monitoring what you're saying. They're monitoring what you're sharing with us on Palm Coast Connect when you have concerns. They're all relaying that information back to our responders so we can quickly address your concerns.
Streets are flooded, and that is the design of Palm Coast. We have a swale system, and our streets become our waterway to move water into our drainage area. So there's a lot of important things for our drainage that we need to follow as citizens in Palm Coast. One, parking in swales during storms is not really beneficial. Cars will become flooded out. We will not be able to get the flooding to subside quickly if we do block our swales. If we're driving through the streets, keep in mind you're going to create a wake that's going to go into somebody's home. So make sure you're driving at a slow speed because the swale fills, the street fills, and then it goes up into the yard.
What are some of the issues that we have with our PEP tank system?
Our PEP tanks need electricity. The PEPs hold the sewage, hold the water, and don't go anywhere. So if we have no power in the home and we decide to do laundry, or if we decide to take a lot of showers, it's going to fill the PEP. The PEP alarm may go off on the side of the house, may not go off on the side of the house, depending on power, but the sewage will start backing up into your home. And then you have a health emergency. So one of the big things that we do pre-storm is talk with FPL. We give FPL all of our plot maps of PEP tank areas in the city and have them turn those areas on with power as soon as possible so we don't have a health-related emergency. Mm-hmm. So if you live in a PEP area, be mindful of the water that you use. Know that it's going to stay in your PEP and it's not going to go out of it until we do have power turned back on.
And even though we may not have power to the whole house, people may run generators to power up certain units like refrigerators or switch over to a washing machine or a dryer or, to get power to certain devices. But make sure when folks have a generator, you're not running it indoors because of carbon monoxide, that you have it outside in a ventilated area so that way you're protecting yourself as well. And then some of the other things that folks should do is make sure your mobile devices are charged up and ready. So a lot of the ways that we communicate with our community during a storm is through social media channels, by using programs like Alert Flagler and Alert Palm Coast to communicate, and how we ask them to communicate with us, post their concerns through Palm Coast Connect so we receive it and we can send the appropriate departments out there. And we always encourage everybody before the storms to follow the Flagler County EOC, Palm Coast Gov, and Palm Coast Fire on all their social media channels because we all come together, we share the same information, we coordinate it, and you're getting the exact same information from everybody there.
Post-storm, for residents, remove your hurricane shutters immediately. Don't leave them up for the next storm. It does become an egress issue. If you have a fire in your home or emergency in your home, you won't be able to get out. It's difficult for us to get in on the same side. If you have storm damage, take pictures of your storm damage so that way you can have actual real-time photos for your insurance provider for when they do come out. Report your damage that you do see to Palm Coast Connect.
They can utilize virtual City Hall there as well to get permits for trees, and our city staff is working behind the scenes to make sure their concerns are being answered. So it's important that they do report storm damage to Palm Coast Connect. Make sure before you hire folks to come and do repairs in your home, they're licensed and insured contractors. So that's a lot of stuff that we've gone over to get people ready for this year's hurricane season. I know we've got some questions that came in, and we kind of answered a lot of them earlier on, but folks can always comment, and we're always happy to help them answer any other questions. So we want to thank you for watching this episode of the virtual town hall, and hope that you take this hurricane preparedness serious and help prepare for this hurricane season. Thank you so much.
Thank you.